A new traffic bylaw has been in force in the city since the 1st of July. Amongst the things that it does is make it easier for an immediate impounding of vehicles if certain traffic offences are decided by the officer on the scene to have been committed. Alderman JP Smith, Maker member for Safety and Security, joins us now. JP, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John.
What is the range of offences? If it's very long, then maybe highlight the most common ones for which there can be an immediate impounding.
No, it's very short. So it's Chapter 11 of the Traffic Bylaw, Section 62, Subsection 1. If the vehicle is being driven in a reckless manner or is engaged in illegal street racing, so that's reckless and negligent driving, vehicle is not roadworthy. The driver of the vehicle is under the influence of intoxicating liquor or drugs. Driver does not stop when signaled to do so by an authorized official in uniform, resulting in the driver having to be forced or persuaded to stop. Then, in relation to vehicles that have been discontinued or where your roadworthy certificate has been withdrawn, and where you continue to operate the road vehicle despite that, where you have a driver's license, where you fail to have a driver's license or a vehicle license disc or a number plate fixed in the manner required by the National Act, not the City Bylaw, and where the vehicle does not have a professional driving permit. And other public transport vehicles that are operating without operating licenses or contrary to the conditions of it, where the vehicle has been left abandoned. So those are the conditions under which the vehicle may then be fined as per normal and then potentially also impounded.
And it's left to the discretion of the traffic officer on the road to decide whether the offence is severe enough to warrant impounding as well as a fine? I mean, what guidance?
The bylaw says may, yes. The authorised official may, in the interest of the safety of the public, without notice, impound a vehicle if, and then the second section says the authorised official may, if satisfied on reasonable grounds and subject to verification. So there, in some cases, there's something that you first have to confirm whether the operating licence is valid or and so forth. So
what guidance is being given to the officers? Because one of the things, as you said, is not having a driver's license. And I very seldom drive without my driver's license, but I do have two vehicles, and very occasionally I drive the second one in order to just keep the battery functional. And occasionally I might forget to transfer my driver's license from car one to car two. So in that circumstance,
the intention here is to pursue that where there is an obvious or explicit attempt at concealing the driver's license. So what happens with certain offenders is that when you pull them over, you can see in some cases there is a genuine absence of a driver's license. You can check with the control room. They have a driver's license. That's a verifiable matter. You can confirm they have a driver's license, and you can then determine that they just don't have it on them. There's no premeditation, but there are certain offenders who purposely don't have their driver's license on them so that you may then not be able to fine them effectively. They then also claim they cannot remember their ID number and are only able to give you the first 6 digits of the birthday and then give you a false address, which means that the prosecution goes nowhere because the person has effectively defeated the ends of justice by misrepresenting their details. In some cases, I've been with traffic officers where a search of the vehicle has then yielded the driver's license tucked underneath the mat or under the seat or somewhere else.
And, I mean, to what extent have the traffic officers been making use? I know that there have been a couple of media releases from the traffic department setting out a fairly significant number of impoundments, impoundings. Is impoundments or impoundings the right word? I'm not sure. For at least some of the various offences that you highlighted.
So over the last year, we have used the National Land Transportation Act, not the City Bylaw, to sharpen up our enforcement around the minibus taxis probably our largest complaints category in the city. And we've gone from impounding 300 or 400 vehicles a year some years ago to now impounding around 900 to 1,200 taxis a month. You'll see that this has led to Santaco withdrawing from the so-called taxi task team, being undertaken by MEC McKenzie. He will have to decide how he wants to deal with this. But the one matter that remains non-negotiable is that there cannot be a cessation of law for driving behavior. You cannot get exempted from consequences because you either threaten violence, as the industry occasionally does, or you claim that you need some special dispensation. That's not going to happen. I understand the argument about whether you should or shouldn't have an operating license and whether there's backlogs in issuing those. But what is non-negotiable is when we impound for driving behavior, which increasingly we're doing. So more and more every month, the number of impoundments we're doing is for the conduct of that public transport vehicle on the road, because the NLTA, the National Land Transportation Act, permits for that, instead of impounding for not having an operating license or operating contrary to the operating license.
So you and I have discussed impounding over the years, JP, and you were very frustrated that the National Act didn't allow impounding for people not having their license plates. And I know, we all know that some people do it deliberately because most speed cameras are focused on the front number plate, so they take it off and then they can't be traced. So they can go up and down Mandela Boulevard, for example, at 120, 160 kilometers an hour, which increasingly I see people doing. And you were frustrated that you weren't able, under certain circumstances, to impound immediately. You had to do a fine, then another fine, and then a third fine. I can't remember the exact.
Well, impoundment is in fact never part of that equation.
Yeah. So
you
were
will
never
go through the process of trying to issue the person a fine. And remember, it's an admission of guilt fine. So you pay the fine for the right to admit that you're guilty in order to prevent appearing in court. If you don't pay the fine, you're expected in court. And then obviously most persons don't show up in court. So you are then needing to, the court, which is not controlled by the city, then issues a warrant of arrest for you. And then you are then required
running out of time. My concern would be that traffic officers, given this power, would be overzealous in its application. No,
I think if anything, they are going to be extremely cautious in its application and use it only in severe circumstances. The bylaw was passed a year and a half ago. It is only now started to be enforced. So I assure you, there's no excess of zeal. That much I can guarantee you. And remember, the dash cams and body cams are being rolled out. So over the next 12 months, you will see our officers starting to drive around with body cams and dash cams in their vehicles, which captures a record of those interactions with the public.
Alderman JP Smith, Maker Member for Safety and Security, thank you very much indeed for giving us some of your time this afternoon.
Afternoon Drive with John Maytham
on CapeTalk.